Hi, welcome to JJ's Productions. We've got another Stoke City vlogcast. With me as always is Jan, and I know how you're doing this week, and it's not going to be that great, is it?
No, it isn't. And I'm sorry if I start crying, but I feel very, very weepy at the minute. So...
Yeah, for those of you who've not heard in the news, Gordon Banks passed away on Tuesday, and it came as a bit of a shock. As we've talked about in the vlog before, Mum was Gordon's biggest fan, and one arguably, and I'm going to say it was quite the loss in this household. So we're definitely talking about Gordon for a fair part of this episode, so apologies to any Wigan or Ipswich fans who tuned in just expecting a bit more, but we will get around to you eventually. But in regards to Gordon, it was a shock on Tuesday, wasn't it?
It was such a shock. I must admit, I was late getting up and my sister rang me and she says, "You haven't heard the sad news then that Gordon's died?" And I just couldn't take it in. He's my hero and I love him so much as a person and as a player. And it's such a loss, such a loss. I'd like actually, if I could go into my life with Gordon. I've been a hero of his from the first time I saw him play in 1967, and I'm almost positive it was against Leicester, and we won. And Gordon had just come from Leicester, so he wasn't actually, he wasn't
picking
it up. Yeah, he just shook hands with everybody as he would, and he even went to shake the boss's hand and, must have said "I'm sorry" or something. But from that moment on, I loved him as a goalkeeper. Then I was only young, and in the school holidays I used to go and watch them train, and I wasn't interested in anybody else, to be honest. They all used to say hello to me, but I used to just stand by Gordon and watch him as he trained, saving and he's diving and whatever. And in time we began talking. I used to go with my sister's friend June, and she was my chaperone as such. And every time I went, I didn't go one day, I went every day to watch him train. Doesn't matter what the weather was, I just went. And they'd say, "Hey, Upper's here. She doesn't come see us. I only go stand by Gordon, look at her." And that's how it was. And this one day, it was pouring down with rain. I was absolutely soaked to the skin, and my hair was long, I was dripping. And he says, "You better come into the changing room building and dry yourself off." He says, "You can't go home like that." He says, "Your parents will sue me." So I went into the dressing room building, and he got me a towel and I'm drying my hair. And Alan Brewer sort of showed himself naked. Well, I'm only young, and I just giggled like a little child. And I think Gordon was just shocked. And he says, "Hey, Up." He says, "There's a young wench here." So Alan Brewer turned around, and I wish he hadn't. And there it was. I saw Alan Brewer in the nud. But that is just one memory. But my favourite not my favourite, one of them is I was ill in 1971 for quite some time. And as you know, they were winning towards the League Cup, because I was still in 1972. And Gordon just had 2 minutes to come spare to see me. And he just came in, and all he said was just to show a care. And that was enough for me. It made me feel better, my pains weren't as bad. And he went. we went on to win the League Cup, as you know. But he also sent me a letter, and some flowers, which I wish I could have saved. Anyway, they got through, they won, and one of the games was against Santos after. And I was fit and well enough to go, even though I wasn't fit to go to Wembley. And I watched the match, and it was good. To see Palais play was something else, and I'm sure other Stoke fans can remember this as well. So outside the main entrance, I waited just to see if I could catch sight of Gordon. And there was a bodyguard, if you want to call him that, a bouncer, I don't know what you call them these days, guarding the door so nobody could get in. Anyway, somebody asked this guard a question and he had to bend down. Well, the door was open. So old Hopalong here legged it, and in I went. So I didn't know where I was going. I went up these stairs and got to the top, and it was this big function room. And of course, my eyes went everywhere. All I could see was the Santos players. And then over on the right-hand side, standing at this table with a glass of champagne each, was Palais and Gordon. Well, Gordon just looked across at me. His mouth just fell open, as if to say, how the hell has she got in here? So he come over to him and he says, what are you doing in here? I said, listen, that guard downstairs, I said, he's no good. I said, he looked away. I said, and I couldn't help myself. So he says, come on, he says, I'll introduce you to Palais. So I thought, well, I only want your autograph again, you know. So I went over and Palais shook my hand. And then Palais took me off and introduced me to all the Santos players. And they were all talking, you know, Spanish. And I just kept saying yes, 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 yes. You know, not taking a bit of notice. And then there was this girl who was serving who walked around with my autograph book, which I'd just given to Gordon for him to sign. He gave it to the waitress, and she was getting all the autographs for me off all the Santos players. And then Palais himself wrote me one when I was holding it, and he says, to a wonderful supporter, with all my love, Palais. And I just treasured that, you know. But then I just went to Gordon. I said, you're going to sign it me again? So he looked through the autograph book. He says, how many times do you want my autograph? I said, well, I'm just going to see how good you sign it now with a glass of champagne down you. And he just laughed. But I ended up staying all night. And I just stood there with him and Palais. And the other Stoke players come and said hi to me because they recognised me. And they were saying to Gordon, have you invited her? He says, don't ask. Don't ask how she's got in here. He says, and I won't be able to tell any lies then. And with that, I had the most wonderful, wonderful night. And it's a night that I will never, ever forget. And I can even see what he was wearing. He was wearing a grey suit and like a grey shirt and a grey tie. And I just thought how wonderful he looked. And as it would happen, Palais had also got a grey suit on just for the... because I can remember that as well. But then I happened to look out of the window and I could see my sister and my brother-in-law looking for me, panicking. So I just knocked on the window and waved as if, you know, I'm still at the match sort of thing. And my sister is going airless. So I said to Gordon, I'll have to go. I said, my sister is supposed to be looking after me. I said, and I've disappeared. So I went, and she says, how did you get up there? I said, I'm not telling anybody. I've been told keep my mouth shut. And that's how it's been until now, because I can't get Gordon in trouble anymore. So them are just a few of my memories with Gordon, and some I cherish with all my life. He'll be my hero forever, and I'll love him forever as well as a person, just because he was that sort of man. I remember when I had another operation, I had a hip replacement in 1990, and he was doing a disabled walk around Trenton Park. Now, Trenton Lake, and I'd only just had this hip replacement, but I thought, go on, I'll do it. And I went around on crutches, and at the end, he gave me a medal, which I've still got to this day. And that's something I treasure. Now, another little fact was, I went to work at a furniture company in Fenton called Bolds. And Ray Bold was the manager, the owner. And he was a good friend of Gordon's. And we used to talk about him. And then one day he says to me, because I was his secretary, and he says, Jan, he says, my silent partner's coming in today. He says, so can you make sure everybody is on spar with everything? I said, yeah. I said, I'll do a quick clean up before he comes. I said, and I'll get the boardroom ready, blah, blah, blah. So I'm just sitting there, and Ray says to me, Jan, my partner's arrived. He says, can you arrange for tea? And I said, yeah, okay. I said, I'll come in and ask what he wants. So I went in, and who should be sitting there was Gordon Banks. And it's a good job I hadn't got the tray in my hand, because I would have dropped it. And he says, oh no. Oh no. And Ray says, what's up, Gord? He says, do you know, he says, I can't even go the place where I'm a director now without her being here. He says, she's my biggest fan. He says, I'll give her that. He says, but my God, she says, she gets in places that I wouldn't even dream of. So he happened to be one of my bosses. And what a wonderful boss he was.
Even if silently.
Even if silently. But Ray did invite me into the boardroom for the meeting, for take notes. And it was just a lovely experience just to sit there and take the minutes of the meeting. It was very special.
If anything, you saw a different side of him, I imagine, there as well, didn't you?
I did. I saw the business side of him. And I just said to him, I said, what do you know about furniture? He says, I buy it, don't I? I said, well, I buy furniture. I said, but I wouldn't know how to start with it. He says, oh, you live and learn. Live and learn.
I'm laughing because I can't help but think what would happen if you said that to a modern footballer.
Well,
You'd probably get the bodyguards kicked out.
Yeah.
It would very least fire you.
Well, Ray says, do you know, he says, I could have sacked you for that. I said, but you wouldn't, would you? He says, no, I wouldn't. He says, only because he's on your side. And I said, well, that's one good thing to know then. I said, you can't sack me because he's got He says, I wouldn't sack you anyway. Anyway, that was just another little story.
I mean, I know this is your part as it is, but for my own part, I never met Gordon, and to be honest, it's a bit of a shame considering all the stories you've just come out with. I really should have met him at some point just by you following him somewhere. But I'm going to say just the interactions I've sort of heard about and the bits I see of him on TV, and, you know, you can't help but just be an admiration of the man. And, you know, the tragic thing is, and I don't know if you've read this in the paper because I know you've been avoiding it a little bit, but they've been saying that he was in line for the knighthood, and, you know, it was essentially lost in the post. You know, the paperwork got muddled up and he was one of the next ones due. And you read that it's not possible to give him posthumously, and you think, you know, you can't...
He should have had it years ago. I wrote to the Queen.
It was funny when you did that, just in the sense that it actually revealed that the Queen has no say in it whatsoever, pretty much. She might just give the okay, but...
She wrote back to me, well, some oppo did, and said, I'm sorry, I don't actually pick them. They are picked and I just say yay or nay. But write to the MPs and see if your wish is granted then. So I did. I never even got a reply off them wassocks.
Yeah, I'm going to say they were pretty useless. I mean, this was about 5 years back on it.
Yeah.
So they had plenty of time to look into it. And, you know, I understand the fact that you can't give it posthumously, but I think people around Stoke-on-Trent especially, if you say Sir Gordon Banks, I don't think anyone will correct it for the simple fact that, if anything, he should have been a Sir. You know, and it's not just the footballing thing, but, you know, winning a World Cup, you should be a Sir in this country. You know, and take into account they actually won the 72 League Cup with us. You know, he's held in high esteem here. But take the sport away, he was just a great man in the city in general, you know. And, you know, all these things combined, it's a travesty that he died without one. But, you know, I mean, knowing Gordon, he wouldn't have been bothered anyway.
Apart from his football, what he did for Alzheimer's alone.
Yeah.
I mean, that was 1990 that I did that walk, and that was for Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
You know, and how long did that guy have to go before he got one?
I mean,
and still he didn't, and I fought for that. I
mean, I vaguely remember, I think it was in the last 12 months or so, both him and World Cup hat-trick guy, I can't think of Jeff Hurst, I couldn't remember his name off the top of my head. I think it was the pair of them were doing another go for it in terms of Alzheimer's. It was a TV promotion that I vaguely remember Sky Sports News promoting.
Yeah.
So even it towards the end, he was still going hard. He was still fighting for try and get support for it. So, you know, it's just a credit to the man that, you know, even when he was sort of getting to the end, you know, maybe he was still feeling better than he was, but, you know, he was still going.
He wouldn't give up until the end.
No.
He was a fighter.
No.
He's been fighting this illness for so long. So, you know, he didn't give up without a fight. And I feel sorry for Ursula. You know, his wife, they've been together so long, and his 3 children. You know, I just feel so sorry for them, because they've not only lost Gordon, they've lost their husband, well, her husband, and their father. They must be in absolute bits at the minute. And I truly send my sincere condolences to the family.
I remember after the announcement that he died, Liam Lawrence, he sent a response to the Stoke Twitter feed just saying if there was anything you know the family want or the club need in terms of supporting, you know, the aftermath as such, he'd be there for him, you know. And I think that's a sentiment that was echoed across the entire Stoke fan base and probably a large part of the footballing community, just in the sense that, you know, I think anyone who had heard of Gordon Banks, or at least heard of what sort of man he was, did want to return that kind of kindness. And I'm going to say...
He was a gentleman.
Exactly, and I think I'm just going to turn it around a little bit back to modern football for a minute, but I think it's what we as supporters aspire modern footballers to be. Yeah. You know, I know that some of them just won't ever be, but I think those who are sort of within reach, you sort of say, look at that man, look how good he was. Yeah. Try and treat him like your role model. And I think some of them just go for the more younger role model as such, you know, but...
I have never known a goalkeeper dive to his right, a footballer kick the ball and turn around to his left as quick as he did and saved a goal. He was so quick, he was unreal. He was a marvellous goalkeeper. And when he flew up to the corners, it was just like an elegant bird flying.
I had a strange reaction the other day. I saw the Pele header again from the 70 World Cup. And it was actually a strange viewing on my part because I was looking at it and, I knew what I was about to see. But I hadn't seen it for a while. So I was a little bit perplexed when I just saw this save from Gordon. And I thought, he made that look so simple.
Yeah.
I was expecting something really, how they say nowadays, we did that for the cameras. It didn't look like one of them, but it still looked a good save, and it was like, if Pally obviously thought he'd scored it must have been a good save, but equally I'm thinking, wow, that just looked a good save, it wasn't like a, wow, how did he save that, because I think...
doesn't Pally say that up until this day, that's the best save he's ever seen by a goalkeeper?
Yeah, and I'll admit, I think even now he still gets Smith bringing it up, just in the sense that, I think that's the quote from him, isn't it? Out of all the goals I scored, people won't talk about the one I didn't.
Yeah. But did you see the goal from the back of the net?
I didn't know. I think I'm going to have to...
if anything, you can get that, look at it from the back of the net.
Yeah.
And you will be impressed.
I think that might show me the technical aspect more, but...
Yeah.
If anything, it certainly wasn't me taking away from Gordon when I had that thought. It was just a case of, it was like, I think he just pulls it off so easily, it looks so simple for him, and...
And can I just say as well, folks, that's how I met my husband. We're divorced now, but it's how I met my husband. I was standing in front of him and he was calling Gordon Banks all the names under the sun. He kept calling him a monkey, for one thing, and making monkey sounds. And I just said, keep on like that. I said, no, can deck you. So we just did this raucous laugh. I turned round and there was this 6 foot blinking 4 bloke standing there. And I thought, oh God, what have I done? And he followed me off the ground and he says, if you can talk to me like that and get away with it, he says, I'll marry you. And so I did. So that was just him talking about Gordon Banks as he did, or else I wouldn't have even spoke to the guy.
I think it's also a sign of your reverence of Gordon, the fact that you're willing to shout down a man twice your size.
I'd shout at anybody if they called Gordon. I mean, even my stepfather called you a monkey, and how I didn't deck him, I don't know.
I'm going to say that's another question. But yeah.
So all I can say now is rest in peace, Gordon. I love you more than ever. I'll miss you more than ever. And I cherish you forever. You're my hero. Rest in peace, my love.
That's sentiments echoed here. Rest in peace, Gordon, because you certainly earned it.
Right, let's get down to the other business now.
Yeah, it's going to be a little brief in terms of how we discuss the Wigan and the Ipswich matches. So if you have stuck around, Wigan and Ipswich supporters, thank you very much. As far as the game yesterday, the Wigan game, it was interesting to listen to. And for what we did here, I'll admit we had a phone call midway through, so we did miss a bit of it. But on paper, it sounded like we were a little bit better as far as going forward, yet you wouldn't know it.
No, I've just made a note here, Josh, to be honest, because I haven't wrote much on this. And I've just said that Bart and Vokes both seem to have played a good game, and it was hard luck for Tom getting injured, and I hope he's okay. But sorry folks, that's as much of the notes I've made this week.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a family emergency which stopped us, but it was a pretty urgent phone call you had to attend to, so we had to stop listening. But from what I could actually gather by Twitter and via the scorecast and whatnot, we did seem to have chances here and there. When James McLean came on, it seemed like we improved a little bit. Not necessarily in that he was clinical by any stretch, but it's as if he created runs that maybe Afobe wasn't.
Sorry.
That's all right, Doc. So yeah, it's interesting to say. I think also we switched formation in the game. I think we went back to a 4-3-3 yesterday, and I can't understand why we did it when, from what I heard at least, we started with Afobe out on the left wing. And that doesn't make sense to me, because I'm like, why have we decided to do that?
That makes as much sense as putting Shawcross up front.
I'm wondering if he was trying to get a shape that the other players, the group of players are comfortable with. But he wanted to also shoehorn a phobia into there, and that just, I've got to agree with you, it doesn't make sense.
I think he just wanted bamboozling.
Well, maybe. I mean, by all accounts, a phobia did nothing. So, you look at that and you think, well, that was an experiment not worth trying again.
Yeah.
So, this is what is bugging me about Nathan Jones at the moment, that he seems to be treating our league status as a bit of a free hit. And it's not that I do believe we'll get relegated, like I said last week, but I would be more happy if we just took it a bit seriously for a few weeks before going on the experimental route.
No, I know we shouldn't play just with one man, Vokes. But don't you think we should play around him and see what player he is comfortable with? I mean, if he thinks he plays better with McLean or with Afobe or with Berahino, why don't they just try that in training? See which one reacts better with each other and go from there.
I remember earlier back in the season, when I say earlier, I mean pretty much at the start, after a couple of games, we did go back to not a 4-4-2, but we did put Berahino just behind Afobe for a few games, and they seemed to strike up a good partnership.
Yeah.
But then for whatever reason, Rowett decided to make it a case of one or the other. And I can't actually understand why we seem to have stuck with that sort of thing where it's got to be one or the other. It can't be... I mean, I'm not saying Vogue should be dropped by any stretch, but it's as if there's always a weird selection involved, and I'm thinking, why don't we just keep things simple? Vokes and Afobe, Vokes and Berahino, why has it got to be Vokes and McLean? I'm not saying anything against McLean in a way, because, like I say, he had a good impact and you want that. But equally, it's like, I'm with you here and I'm thinking, why aren't we at least trying to create a partnership? If they want it to be McLean, fair enough, but keep it at that. Don't suddenly
can't keep
change
swapping
it.
and changing, because they just don't know where they are.
Yeah.
Vokes, who I'm hoping for big things off him, I've got to be honest.
Yeah. And
I just think that they should centre around that and see who he plays best with. He's got to have a partner there. And whoever it is, they've got to keep them together. Not for one game, not for two, but for 3 or more games. I'm sure the Stoke supporters will accept it, getting used to each other. But it's the only thing I can think.
I mean, if it's McLean, I do believe there needs to be a reasoning behind it in public. Just something to calm the supporters down and say, we've started James up front because of blah, 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 and, we're going to give him a run just to see if this works out with Sam.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, then we'll try something else. Just something to basically pacify the supporters. And yes, I know that might mean you're leaking team info to the opposition, but the way I see it is, what's it going to impact us for the rest of the season? But just as far as the game itself goes, Wigan did have a few chances, not a lot, but they did have the better chances from what I've heard. It was like, how didn't they score that chances?
Yeah.
So I think they might be feeling a little bit unlucky that they didn't get something more than we did. I mean, in the sense of the 3 points. And I'm going to say that concerns me as well, because from all accounts, the defence and the midfield were pretty good in the game.
It's only Joe who I felt was letting us down.
Yeah, Joe's come for a bit of flack again, and Woods is... I don't know how to describe Woods as far as how the fan base are perceiving him. They're considering him a poor man's Charlie Adam, and the thing is, it's funny how he's fallen from grace from when he made his debut for us against Sheffield Wednesday, when he was literally undroppable to the fan base, to suddenly no one wants him. And I think it just shows the style of play that we've gone from, which was in that game, we were pretty much happy trying to keep control of the ball, passing it around. Whereas now we seem happier to play it fast, and that doesn't really suit Ryan's play style.
No. But there's got to be something happening there with Joe. He's got to have a rollicking off somebody.
I think the concern for me is that Joe he's a Premier League player in the Championship, and you can't help but wonder if mentally he's not in the Championship, he's still in the Premier League. A bit like how we've been saying about Jack.
Yeah.
And,
If he's playing below his
Yeah, maybe he's playing below himself because he feels that's all he needs to play.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's very hard for us to comment without watching it, so I'm not going to go too hard on the criticism. If anything, I know I do it at times and I don't feel comfortable, but I can't wait for the Villa game because we have said we're going to try and get to that if we can get 2 tickets.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed we can actually have a good assessment of what we see before us rather than what camera angles or radio commentary dictates, and hopefully that'll be interesting. In the meantime, though, we've got a game against Ipswich, so do you want to go through the stats for them?
Yeah, not very good actually, folks. They've won 3, drawn 10 and lost 19. The top scorer is Sears. Is it Frederick or...
Freddie.
Freddie, yeah. Freddie Sears. He's on 6 goals. So, not very good at all. Yellow cards, they've got 22. Red cards, they've got 3. They're currently in 24th and we're currently in 17th. So, they've not very good stats at all. And I've actually put, all I'm going to say is we should beat them, no problem. But I've said this before.
Well, you were reading Freddie Sears' numbers there, and I'm thinking to myself, what's our top scorer on at the moment? Because I couldn't really say off the top of my head, but I don't think Phobe's advanced.
No.
Well, he's probably on 7, I think.
And Tom Ince hasn't, has he?
Yeah, I don't think Ince has scored this year.
No.
So,
we're still on the 6, but a couple have got 6.
I think Joe's jumped up the rankings as well.
Yeah, I think he might be on either 4 or 5.
Yeah, so, we've got 3 players who have scored some goals for us, but I don't think when you say 6 there, it can be sniffed at, because when you think about it, none of ours are doing that great by comparison, so it's...
I think the next one to them, though, was 4, and that was somebody with a funny name, and I thought, thank goodness I haven't got to say his name.
I'm going to say, I'll admit I'm trying to think who that could be now, but I think I'll run out of time. I mean, I've got to admit, I'm curious about this game because Paul Lambert's home team, it does give me, it presents an interesting problem. You look at it and you think, he's going to relish Stoke coming there, I think, in the sense of if we just sit back, make them attack us, he might be fancying getting a win on the board, in the sense of we might play into their hands.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, I might agree with that idea. I know I've just voiced it, but, it's like I could easily imagine it, and it's quite concerning because I can't see, even though they're the home team, I can't see Ipswich coming on to us and forcing the issue. I think they'll be happy to sit back and counter. And unfortunately, that's what we need to do to be successful as a team right now.
We have got to go out there. We have got to show them that we are back.
I think that will only happen if we've got Charlie Adam in the team, because unfortunately, I never thought I would say that we are missing him, but we are missing Charlie Adam.
We are, and I never ever thought I'd say that.
At least at the start of the season, I thought, I'll be honest, I thought Charlie had gone. And, that performance against Leeds and the one before against Shrewsbury, they essentially said, right, I'm still got a place in this team.
Well, it was actually Charlie Adam versus Leeds versus Sheffield, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, I'm going to say he's just been irreplaceable in the last couple of games. Well, it's pretty obvious. You look at him, we got a win against Leeds. Granted, we lost against Shrewsbury, but we played pretty well. Suddenly he's out of the team, and I don't think we've scored since, have we?
No.
So, you look at it and you think, come on, Charlie.
That's why I was so happy yesterday. We didn't let any goals in.
I know, that was the only positive for me.
I mean,
I know you might say stats have improved, but for me, the biggest stat was clean sheet.
Yeah.
If anything, that was a good thing to mark for Gordon. But
I never even thought that I would clap a 0-0 draw.
Well, to be honest, after the losses, I think I was happy with it.
Yeah.
It's something to build on.
Yeah.
And, nothing against Ipswich, but I do hope that we can build on it again and get something, something useful against you.
Well, like I say, on paper, it's a non-entity, really. We should beat a man's down.
Then again, though, on paper, we should have been thrashed by Leeds. So
Yeah, that's what I say. It doesn't work.
On paper, it means nothing. So the Ipswich fans will be fancying the chances, seeing how we've played this season. Yeah. And, even though they've had a poor season by all accounts themselves, then they might be thinking, you know what, we've got a chance there. Maybe not a big chance, but, I can't surmise, but that's what I'm guessing. But, it's going to be an interesting game.
Are you ready for your verdict?
Yeah, I'm ready for the predictions.
That's the word.
We're playing guesswork, are we? I've put doubt in my own mind here, and for that reason, I am going to go for 2-1 Ipswich. Not the result. Yeah, I think they will sit back. They will pretty much invite us onto them, and we haven't got a creative tool in our tool set without Charlie Adam, and therefore we might go 2 goals down and suddenly have a late salvo, but it'll be too late.
Folks, you might not be able to understand what Josh says on the next vlog, because I don't think he'll be able to speak when I beat him up.
Well, I'll have a fat lip.
Right, my prediction, folks, is Ipswich 1, Stoke City 3.
So we're both in agreement that Ipswich are most likely going to score.
Yeah, I don't mind them getting 1.
I'm going to say, if anything, that might please a few Ipswich supporters up, because I know they scored in midweek, but I wouldn't imagine they're the most free-scoring team in the league.
No.
So, they might be happy that 2 Stoke supporters think they'll score against us.
And I'm hoping Big Sam gets on the score sheet.
For a second, I was thinking of Allardyce. I was thinking, where's he come from? Is he suddenly playing up front for Ipswich?
we could do with him being invisible, standing in the goal.
What, with his pint of wine and his big hamburger or whatever he eats?
I don't care where he was.
I don't know. To be honest, I think we'd need Big Sam in the opposition goal just to stand a chance right now. Okay, so thank you very much for listening, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed Mum's stories. I hope you've enjoyed the preview and the review. And we'll be back for the next game, which is going to be Aston Villa, if I remember right. So
it is.
I'm glad I didn't get that one mixed up. I'll admit that with the midweek fixtures, I've completely got mixed up. I'll be glad when we're back to 1 a week for a bit. But as I've said, thank you very much for listening.
Okay, see you folks, and have a good match if you're going to Ipswich, and safe journey all of you.
Yeah, same here. I'm going to say, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much. Bye everyone.
Bye.